horrible. And so we're really, really grateful for you taking the time to do this with us today.
And well, thank you. It's a pleasure.
Excellent. And also, Cody, we were thinking about today to make it a little bit more personal, that first, if you give it, you talk a bit about 5G and mind control and so on. And then when, in the meantime, when people have questions, there's a button here on Zoom where they can just raise their hand. I get their name, and then when there's a good time, we'll just unmute that person, and they can ask you the question themselves. So, sounds good?
Yeah.
Excellent. So, Cody, I know that you have some information about 5G, but also an incredible amount of information about mind control. And this is maybe a problem that, or a thing that many people are not aware of, but it is a major problem for many because very few people believe them. And so would you mind giving us a bit of background in whatever area or wherever you want to go with these two topics, and we'll just take it from there?
Yeah, there are two different topics. 5G is the new rollout, for increased speeds. For downloads, it operates basically in the 30 gigahertz to 300 gigahertz range in what they call the millimeter wave spectrum. And giga, means a billion. So a hertz is a measure of cycles per second. So you're talking 30 billion cycles a second to 300. And it's touted by the industry to decrease download speeds by approximately 10 gigabytes a second. And, you can download a full HD movie in just a matter of seconds with this new technology. It's about anywhere from 3 to 10 times faster than the old 4G cell phone systems that we're all used to. And here in America, we probably won't have any 5G until probably 2019 when they get all the new equipment set up. And the millimeter waves don't travel well through buildings. They're absorbed. They have a real high coefficient of absorption by things like in the atmosphere, like rains or pollution, plants, stuff like that. You have to have line of sight for this technology. And so what they're going to do is set up a bunch of repeater stations real close and small antennas, and they're going to make a grid with this stuff. And so the problem with all this new technology, of course, is that the industry hasn't tested it thoroughly for, side effects. And so there's a whole host of varying side effects. And also, when this is being rolled out to the civilian populations, don't forget that DARPA, the Defense Advanced Research Project Agency, and other agencies have covertly weaponized this technology. And so it's like a Pandora's box of brand new stuff. Over there in Europe, they had something called Eclipse. It's an EU-funded review body, and it was dedicated, to policies on the impacts of biodiversity and ecosystems, because over in Europe, the population density is larger here than in the U.S., where a lot of things are spread out. But they studied about 97 separate studies on how electromagnetic radiation can affect the environment. And they found significant cause for worry. And then there's also the studies on how electromagnetic radiation affects, the tissue of the body. And these new waves, these 5G waves, have such a short wavelength. They're absorbed in, about the first millimeter or two of your skin or in the cornea of your eyes. And so they have significant potential to be weaponized. And so, they have about 3 different carrier waves mixed in with this very complex waveform. They have a low, which is like about 0.6 gigahertz to 3.7 gigahertz. Then the mid-range carrier waves in this signal are about 3.7 gigs to 24 gigs. And then they have a high a high range of 24 gigahertz to 300. So this is a very complex waveform.
To the left. And I remember, I mean, I could almost, have touched the other car. I think we were talking about inches between them. So it's just a miracle that we didn't crash head on. And then.
Yeah. Can you still hear me?
Sorry for the interruption. Somebody's microphone was turned on and they were broadcasting something. Please, Ola didn't say anything. It was just an interruption. So please go ahead.
Okay. Well, anyway, the 5G, the new signals, they have, they're called CP DF OMs, which are cyclic prefix orthogonal frequency division multiplexing. That's one of the forms. And the other one's DFT SOFDMs, which is discrete Fourier transform spread orthogonal frequency division multiplexing. And those are the technical names for these waveforms, but they're extremely complex. And the problem with this new technology is that our biology of human beings and other things like cats and dogs and common pets that would be associated with human beings in their residential structures and stuff. Our DNA and our biology has not seen this before. This is a brand new technology, a very high frequency waves that will be permeating our cities, and our biology has no defense against it. We've evolved completely without this kind of stuff. So the question here is, what will this do to us? What does it have for potential? The industry touts all the good things that it does, but the question is, what are the long-term effects of this? And the answer is, the research has not been done. We simply do not know. Now, there's a lot of theorists and conspiracy people who say, oh, it's a kill grid and they're going to set it up, and the New World Order is going to use it to make people sterile and so forth. That potential does exist within this technology. However, the testing simply has not been done on a scientific level. And here in the U.S., the FCC, that's the Federal Communications Commission, that has unlicensed a part of our electromagnetic spectrum. They have it all cut up for licensing, for radio stations, FM, AM, TV, and so forth. And they've unlicensed a part of this higher frequency spectrum. It's about from 61 to 71 gigahertz. And that is open to all telecom companies to be used however they want to use it. And, this technology didn't exist before, so it's brand new, and they've opened up this new part of the spectrum. And the 5G wavelengths, they're about from 1 to 10 nanometers, and they're very narrow, they're very focused, and they're line of sight. And the antennas that broadcast them can be as small as a few millimeters. So they can set up hundreds of these antenna elements, each very, very small, and they can put them in phased arrays. And then they can put these on street lamps or telephone poles, in any building, anything in a city, just like all those cameras going up around London and Heathrow Airport and LaGuardia Airport over here in New York. They have a camera system everywhere. These new 5G phased arrays, they're very small, and they can be put every several hundred feet to give complete coverage. And the question is, what will this do, to people with long-term exposure? Because once they set this grid up and turn it all on, it's going to be on all the time. And you might be exposed to it, 5 minutes, for a short exposure, or you may be exposed, hour after hour after hour. And so the question is, what is this going to do? And the answer is, we don't know. It's an untested new technology, and it has the potential for weaponization and also a potential to alter biology at a fundamental level. What I mean by that is, when you alter biology at a fundamental level, one common thing that we all use is hemoglobin in our blood. and it is has 4 polypeptide groups in it. One of them has 141 amino acids in the alpha strain, and the other one in the B strain or the B chain has 146 amino acids, and they bond together in a unique structure with iron, and that allows us to uptake oxygen in our bodies and then transport it to our tissues and deliver that, and then bring the carbon dioxide out as a waste product, and we breathe it out. And all mammals use this: cats, dogs, humans. And so there's been several scientists put warnings out that this 5G field, if it's strong enough at the right amplitude, the right intensity, it may be actually affect our breathing and the bonding of oxygen in our hemoglobin. And if that's the case, it could lead to a lot of long-term problems like anemia, headaches, nausea, and so forth. And so, you know, in the U.S. military here, they've already got weaponized microwave weapons that create nausea, or they create lethargy. They know the frequencies to modulate the fields around the 840 megahertz region of the electromagnetic spectrum to cause anger, vomiting, and all that. And they've already got crowd control stuff and civil unrest beams that they can turn on. They're portable. I think there were some pictures of those at the recent Boston bombing, at the Boston Marathon here in the U.S., where they brought those in later, and they're black. They're like the MRAPs, you know, where they have the big antenna up on top, and you can Google that up. People can see that kind of stuff. So anyway, that's a basic overview of some of the 5G stuff. It's a new technology, and it has not been tested, and it has the potential for degradation of DNA and all kinds of other things. But like I said, the actual tests have not been done because, you know, the industry doesn't want to fund research that's going to show its own problems. All they tout right now, you know, when they're advertising it, is the great download speeds and faster comms and all kinds of things like that.
So we have a question here from Siri. Can you unmute her, please, Will?
Pardon me?
We have a question here from one of the webinar participants called Siri. So she's unmuted now. Maybe if she wants to ask her question to herself. No, she's not. Siri? Okay, she prefers to chat, so I'll read it to her. Read it to you. She says, I read an article on neonatal about Bill Gates having invented a birth control microchip that could be switched on and off. It said it could be available later this year after tests in Africa are completed. One might ask who owns the switch. I don't know. Are you aware of this thing, Cody?
No, I'm not aware of it, and I have no you know, any kind of operational knowledge about that. However, microchips, if they're inserted in the right place and they emanate the right type of fields, magnetic or electric fields, or if they released a chemical from some protein code or something, they could definitely change, you know, the reproductive cycles of people. Also, you know, the serotonin and melatonin that are produced in the pineal gland, melatonin is produced there. It's a neurotransmitter, neurohormone. That also regulates our circadian rhythm and reproductive cycles too. So if they found some way to put in a chip that would alter melatonin production to the point of disrupting reproductive cycles, that's certainly within the realm of possibilities, but I haven't heard of that.
But this whole 5G technology is also to lead us into smart cities and so on, as far as I'm informed. Is that correct?
Yeah, it could be used that way. When you increase download speeds anywhere from 3 to 10 times, some people say that the future technology, once they get the basic 5G installed, they could even go up to 100 times as fast as we have with the 4G now. And so when you can move information at that rate, it opens up a whole new possibility for people like law enforcement and FEMA here in the U.S., you know, the Department of Homeland Security. The governments can move data 100 times faster. That would give them a way to control people 100 times better. And so if you put everyone in a smart city, you could certainly use a technology like this to just about know everything what they're doing in basic real time.
Well, scary, scary. It's like with everything, isn't it? It's like a two-edged sword. In one way, amazing technology. In another way, depending on who's behind it, it can be extremely dangerous. And but is there any? Do they? How come they get away with using this totally untested?
Well, it's just like with the Monsanto stuff, you know, when they got that glyphosate approved, one of the guys that was in the head attorney for Monsanto here in the U.S., he got appointed, I believe Barack Obama was the president that appointed him to the head of the FDA, the Food and Drug Administration. And you have this revolving door between the executives in these big companies and then the regulatory agencies, which are supposed to watch them. And then when, you know, they get done with their stint in the FDA or the FCC, which regulates electronics, and then they go right back to the same company, you know, that before the whole process. And I'd like to say, you know, about Monsanto, a lot of people may not know this. You know, in 2015, they had about $4.8 billion of revenue, you know, from their glyphosate sales worldwide. And in July 2018, I believe it was, Bayer, the company, the German company, merged with Monsanto for approximately $60 billion. And so right now here in the U.S., they have a big court case. A guy named Dwayne Johnson, he was a 46-year-old groundkeeper out in California. He's got terminal cancer, supposedly from the glyphosate. And they're having a huge court case out there right now, which may decide Monsanto's future use of glyphosate. So we're all watching that real close, you know, to see how that turns out, because glyphosate is just like 5G. It has a lot of downside to it and has caused a whole lot of damage, but it's difficult to quantify all this stuff, you know, to see how it is. But, you know, 5G, it has a lot of stuff. It has effects on the skin. It makes the whole soup around cities, the soup of electrosmog, they call it, you know, where you have hundreds of TV and radio stations, millions of cell phone signals, all kinds of military, law enforcement, ultra high frequency for the firefighters and police and all the civilian stuff. And now they're going to add even more. And it makes a soup or a smog electromagnetically. And then it sets up resonance patterns over a city where these waves, some of them reflect off buildings or they reflect off metal structures, bridges, and so forth. And they can set up time variant and spatial variant resonance patterns that are not predictable. There's just no way to predict it. So there's so many ways that this stuff affects our bodies, and our science has not caught up with the testing of all of it. It's so much, so fast. The chemicals like glyphosate in our environment, and you know, fluoride in the water, and then all these new electrical signals, and people having cell phones. A lot of the kids here in America put their cell phone, iPhone 6s, right. The girls put them in their bra and carry it around, and some of the guys put it in their front or back pockets of their blue jeans. And these things have antennas in them that are sending out the microwaves close to the reproductive organs like the breasts and the testicles and so forth. And there could be a spate of reproductive cancer epidemic from this here in another 15, 20 years. The long-term effects of all this stuff have not been studied. The telecom companies just dump it out, and the consumers buy it, and they start using it, and the long-term effects have not been studied, just like with glyphosate in the food. We are creating a potential Pandora's box of serious health effects, 20, 30 years down the road.
Who's a professor at the Karolinska Hospital in Stockholm, he's been studying the effects of
Yeah, the comms
waves and stuff for years, and he's been trying to pump out information about how dangerous this really is, because according to him, it's extremely dangerous. Asking how do you know?
Yeah, I couldn't understand anything you were saying. The line was breaking up. I think they're probably hitting our comms.
Okay, so
Hello, are you there?
Hi, Cody. I can hear you. We can't hear.
We have a question here.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. The comms are breaking up. Are you there, Ole?
Hold on one second, everybody. Just give it a second to catch up. Ole's, I think, signal isn't that strong right now. Let's just give it a minute to catch up, please.
But I'm here, but I don't know if you can hear me. I'm unmuted.
Yeah, no, we can hear you. It's just that you were breaking up.
Okay.
It seems better now. Please continue.
Okay, so can you hear me, Cody?
Yes.
Okay, so we got a question here from Peter. He says, is there a way to get out of the secret CIA list or get off it once you're placed on it? I'm not totally sure which list he's referring to.
Okay, I couldn't understand what you were saying. Can you please repeat that?
He says, is there a way to get off the secret CIA list once you're placed on it?
Oh, well, in the first place, the CIA has a lot of secret lists. It depends on what area of the world you're in, and they have all kinds of secret lists of all kinds of different things. But once you have been, looked at as a person of interest for whatever field, it might be weapons of mass destruction, it might be terrorism, it might be arms trafficking, it might be any number of reasons why they would want to put you on a list. You may never get off that, and you're never going to know whether you're on it or not. They're not going to tell anyone. They won't share information unless they have to, say with Homeland Security or FBI or any of them. And it depends on the level that you're at. If you're at a real high level, like somebody like Osama bin Laden, when they were searching for him, they are very, very strict and stringent with sharing information of any kind with anybody. Because you have to remember that some of our intelligence agencies, like the Defense Intelligence Agency here in America, they have been infiltrated. Some of the cartel members have infiltrated the DEA in our country. And there's double agents and there's moles. And so if they share information with another agency, and then that information leads to the compromise of their field agents or field assets in another country, that's why they do what they do. It's a way to protect and compartmentalize things. But once you're on a list, you know, you may never get off of it, or you might. You're never going to know on the outside, if you're on a list or not. You're never going to know what the status of that.
Okay, we got another question here. It says, what is the biggest mind control weapon they have against us, that they're using against us, as far as you know? Well, can you please mute Peter Moore?
What?
Yeah, we were getting some kind of interference there. Yeah, the question, I'm sorry, what was the question again?
The question is, what is the biggest mind control weapon they use against us?
Wow. That is a really good question. I'd say on a mass scale, you know, around the world, it would probably be subliminals. You know, mind control is something that, you know, you do to somebody. You know, the objective of it is to condition a subject in such a way that they end up acting without consciously thinking. So it's a way to affect their behavior without their knowledge that something's been done to them. And so when you look at subliminals, that can be put in any number of visual or audio forms, I would say that's one of the best tools they have worldwide on a mass level. Now, there's specific mind control weapons like the MK Ultra and microwave targeting and all that kind of stuff that are weaponized stuff. But generally speaking, I'd say subliminals are probably bad. I mean, it's a message or a signal that passes below the normal limits of perception. And with our mass media today and the rapidity of how stories can be copied and sent around the world on the internet very quickly, this has become a very powerful form of mind control. And it's usually like an image, a visual image, like those shoes that you're showing on your pictures. That can be transmitted briefly, and it's unperceived consciously in some cases if it's done with subliminal programming, and not perceived unconscious, but perceived unconsciously. And an example is like in TV and movies. You know, they rely on what they call, it's something called the persistence of vision. It's the way our optic nerves and our medulla oblongata work and our eyes, and it creates the illusion of movement. Like if you're watching a chase scene on a movie, that's generally about 23 to 30 frames a second, and our eyes are used to that. And when they do that, it looks to us like a car's, you know, going across the screen or whatever. And what they do subliminally is they insert an image at about 1 frame a second, and it crosses the screen so quickly that it's not consciously perceived. Our eyes pick it up and send it to our subconscious, but our conscious mind just doesn't register it. And so it's picked up subconsciously. And if it's repeated over and over and over, then this amounts to a form of subconscious brainwashing on a mass scale. And so this is a real powerful thing that a lot of people are not aware of, and it's being done to them without their knowledge. Here's an example. Okay, let me give you an example of this. Back here in the United States of America, in 2000, the year 2000, there was a presidential race here between George Bush Jr. and Al Gore, the Democratic candidate. And the Bush campaign used a TV commercial, and they were caught doing this. And it used subliminals, and they were messaging over pictures of Al Gore. And what they do is they put up Al Gore's face on the ad, and then they would put right after it something like in big capital letters, bureaucrat decide. Okay, that appeared right after his name, and then what flashed up there right after that was rats, R-A-T-S, and that flashed for only 1/13 of a second. But what it did subliminally in the subconscious mind of the viewers was it associated Al Gore and the Democrats with vermin or rats, which has a negative connotation. Most people around the world hate rats. So the FCC, the Federal Communications Commission, investigated it, but no charges were filed. And that's just one small example of how they use subliminals in a political campaign to smear their opponents. And it's done without your knowledge, because at 1/13th of a second, your conscious mind does not register it, but your conscious mind makes the association of negativity with the political party. So this is just one example, but I would say subliminals overall are one of the worst weapons people in all countries around the world face. And they have laws in a lot of countries, broadcasting laws. They even have them here in the U.S., but it's hard to enforce them. And, there's a lot of corruption. And so these things do occur, and they're going on right now. There's other, if you say, what's the worst weapon? Well, it depends on who you are. I mean, they have a lot of weapons in their arsenal for mind control, and subliminals are just one of them.
We got another question here from Bruce. He says, I've heard recently that there's over 1 million targeted individuals in the US now. Are there technologies more invasive than microwave voice to skull that can influence minds or surveil nervous system activity of people?
The answer to that is yes. There's some very, very sinister technologies. I don't know how anyone could arrive at a figure of the number of targeted individuals in each country, because the targeting is covert, most of it. And so multiple agencies may be doing it. For instance, the Central Intelligence Agency has a wide range of electronic harassment, sound weapons, microwaves, all kinds of ways they can harass you. The Defense Intelligence Agency, the FBI, each agency has their own little repertoire of black bag tricks they can use. And it's hard to know the exact number of people that are being targeted, but I will tell you this, over the last 6 months, I have received hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of emails of people who have been targeted. They've been hit with microwave attacks. One woman went to the doctor. She got burned with the microwave. She had sunburn on her face. I had one doctor who was a medical doctor and an officer in the United States Army that was involved in the Abu Ghraib prison scandal, the torture scandal over in Iraq. And he was nearly killed with the microwaves. He suffered a stroke and spent 5 weeks in a hospital recovering. His pet dog was blinded with the microwaves and had to be euthanized. We've had reports over and over and over of all types of targeting, harassment, all kinds of things. Now, to answer the second part of the question, the targeting has been increasing. That's what we've been getting from people. The number of emails has been going up. The number of attacks has been increasing. I'm getting calls from all over the world of people that have been hit with this stuff. And I've been hit with microwaves before too. But there are worse things than that. There's things like the psychic attacks that were being tested in Project Slammer. They're offshoots of the CIA's and later the Defense Intelligence Agency Stargate program, which was a program that used remote viewers and psychics to remote view targets like Soviet missile silos and so forth, submarine locations that the satellites can't pick up, and so forth. And there's been a number of people who have written books about that. One of them was David Morehouse, who wrote the book Psychic Warrior, the true story of America's foremost psychic spy. and the cover up of the CIA's top secret Stargate program. There's another book by Jim Schnabel, which is called Remote Viewers: The Secret History of America's Psychic Spies. There's all kinds of books about this stuff. Psychic Dictatorship in the USA by Alex Constantine. I mean, I could go on and on and on. Memoirs of a Psychic Spy is another one that was written by Joseph McMoneagle. He was working for the U.S. Army, and they put him in a psychic spy program. One of the things they did, if you remember back in 1979, I believe it was, when the Ayatollah Khomeini overthrew the Shah in Tehran, Iran, and they overran our embassy there and kidnapped the CIA station chief and some other officers and stuff. I had a friend that was with the ONI, the Office of Naval Intelligence, who was at that embassy when that happened in 1979. But we had very little HUMINT, which is human intelligence. We had very little satellite intelligence, because they moved these people underground. And so they used the psychics like Joseph McMoneagle in the Stargate program and David Morehouse to try to remote view and find these people. So to answer this question, it's a big question. They have a lot of weapons, and they have a lot of ways to target people. And one of them is the insidious method of psychic attack. It's up and beyond and over normal electronic harassment like modulated microwave fields, or ELF, that's extremely low frequency sound waves, or high frequency sound waves, or any of the other weapons they have in their tricks. So we can talk more about psychic attack and all that stuff later, how it works and how they do it and stuff like that. But the two primary programs were the Stargate program, and then later on the Project Slammer program. So hope that answered that question.
Cody, the more I look into the CIA and the more I hear you talk about the CIA, DIA, and so on, I mean, these organizations are officially there to protect us, to work for us. But on a scale of 1 to 10, how good are they doing their job? And how for me, it's more and more that they are totally part of the enemy. How do you see it?
Yeah, it's hard to answer that question. It's like saying, how long's a string? You know, what kind of job are they doing? A lot of their jobs are covert, and we don't even know what they're doing. Only when there's blowback or something's declassified years later do we actually see the true extent of what they're doing operationally. So it's real hard to answer a question like that. I think, they obviously, perform some type of legitimate above board or vanilla, need. We need to know the intelligence of where the next bombing is, or the next weapons of mass destruction are going to be released, or whatever. The problem is that so many of these intelligence agencies, even not just here in the U.S., but all around the world, they have an above board part, a vanilla part, and then they have the black ops part. And what I've seen over the last 20 or 30 years is that the black ops part, the shadow government part, the deep state part of them have been growing and growing and growing. And they've shifted their focus away from above board legitimate operations that can be scrutinized by some legislative or political body like Congress or a cabinet or the House of Commons in England. They've shifted that focus. They're hiding stuff more and more. And the worldwide budgets are black. Look at the heroin crop, the opium crop over in Afghanistan for 2017. It was the largest ever recorded. That stuff's going somewhere, and the money's going somewhere, and it's being laundered. And it's being laundered into deep black space programs, DARPA, Defense Advanced Research Project Agency, black programs. And the black programs do stuff like, find out how to kill people with microwaves, or how to control crowds with sound waves, and stuff like that. So it's real hard to answer that question. But I've seen an overall shift from the light to the darkness. And they're using these secret programs more and more. Like the last question the guy asked, there's 1 million people being targeted in the USA alone. Well, that number may be a lot more than that. You know, we really don't know, because a lot of people who are targeted, Ole, with these things, they have a stigma where they don't want to go out and tell anyone because they're so tired of being told they're crazy. And you get a lot of social blowback, and, you know, people go, oh, you're a nut job and you're a tinfoil conspiracy hat guy. And that's all BS and all, and it's not. It's absolutely real. And then when it happens to you, then you realize it's real, if you can stay alive.
Mm. Does a tinfoil hat have any use?
Yeah, it does. When you're under, okay, a standard 4G cell phone, for instance, that operates approximately around 140, 900 megahertz. And the natural human, the resonance of the human cranium also happens to be about 840 megahertz. So when they use a weapon or a device like the CIA synthetic telepathy device that was made in E-Systems under covert contract, I can talk about a lot about all that with Operation Holy See, where they tested it at the Vatican and so forth. But they can modulate microwaves over your head, and they also know the frequencies of your inner ear nerves, and they can actually make you hear thoughts inside your head. It's called a synthetic telepathy device. And if you wear a tinfoil hat or some type of a Kevlar helmet or some type of mediating, it has a high coefficient of absorption of electromagnetic radiation, you can certainly mitigate the effects of these types of microwave attacks. And a tinfoil hat actually will reflect a bit of it. You know, they first started that foil stuff way back in World War II, when the Nazis and the British were having their air war over London, and they called it chaff, and they would take little strips of tin foil and drop it out of the bombers, you know, so that it would confuse the radar signals and make targeting and so forth harder. So foil does have both an absorptive and a reflective use. And if you made a thick enough hat, it could certainly stop some of the waves. So a lot of people laugh about it, but the question is how to protect yourself from these attacks.
Thank you for that answer. Janet asks here, follow up on the subliminal discussion. Didn't we used to have a law against this back in the 60s and 70s?
Oh, a law against what?
I need to go back and see. I'm not really sure. Maybe Janet could add that, and then I'll get you to another question here.
I think it was with respect to the embedding of subliminals into visual and audio sound bites and things like that.
Right. Yeah, they did make a law about that, and it came from a guy, I can't remember his name, it starts with a V. He was some kind of product marketing guy, and back in 1957, they tested a machine that projected very light images, and they did it over actresses' faces and stuff on the big screens back then when everyone was going to movies. And they would put a subliminal over them that you really couldn't see with your eyes, but you'd pick it up with your subconscious mind. And it would say, if you're hungry, eat popcorn, and if you're thirsty, drink Coca-Cola. And they ran 6-week covert tests. And, you know, they did it first without it and then with it. And there was up to 70% more popcorn and Coke sales later on with this subliminal stuff. And so when that worked, he tried to market that to several other companies. And that's when Congress stepped in and did pass a law about subliminal advertising. But the stuff they've got now is a lot more sophisticated than that.
Okay, so we got a question from Tony here. She asked, or he, who manufactures all electronic equipment for harassment? They have to be mass produced to get the numbers we are speaking about.
Okay, I couldn't understand what you said. Who manufactures what?
Who manufactures this all the electronic equipment that is used to harass people like this?
Oh yeah, well, one of them I know for sure is down in E-Systems. That's a big government contractor for the U.S. government for a long time. They have a big factory down in El Paso, Texas, and I actually knew somebody that worked there once. They were a undercover agent, and they worked there in the factory. But they manufactured, for instance, the synthetic telepathy machine that the CIA was testing, using modulated microwaves around the 840 megahertz spectrum, and then coupled that with the new digital microprocessors that were coming out. And they had like a suitcase model with a handheld little dish where you could do line of sight pointing of the microwave to get the beam to the target. But there's many companies that produce all this different stuff. They have front companies. Some of them, they send stuff out overseas and have it produced, with the cover of a foreign company like in China or wherever. And so I don't know the name of all the companies. Lockheed Sanders, Lockheed Martin, Boeing, some of the companies like that produce all these electronic devices. But it's just like, in the pharmaceutical business. The Bushes have controlling interest in the stock in Lilly Pharmaceuticals, and they have certain wings in the buildings, that are cordoned off like research or whatever, and they conduct covert pharmaceutical research, like with the mind control drugs and truth serums and so forth. These things do not show up on the standard PDRs, physician's desk reference and so forth. So a lot of people don't know about them. And I'm sure they have a lot of companies that produce all kinds of things with front companies and shell companies over, because you got to remember they're washing black ops money to get this stuff built. And they can't just go to Congress and say, you know what, we need $100 million so we can develop microwave weapons to harass Americans and maybe kill them, because Congress wouldn't give them the money. So there's a lot of black ops stuff and a lot of shield companies and front companies doing this stuff.
Also, I think when you look at how these operations are always compartmentalized, I know where, for instance, during the Iran-Contra scandal, where weapons were stolen from the National Guard and then sent out to countries like Nicaragua, Honduras, El Salvador, in these big planes that Chip Tatum was one of the pilots. They had a factory down, I believe it was in Mexico, that used to do parking meters, but that factory was actually also manufacturing the part where the serial numbers of the weapons were, so that they could get these parts from that factory without them knowing what they were doing, and then replace them so that the weapons that was transported down there were non-traceable.
Yeah, what they do commonly is they'll hire one company to build some circuit boards, and they'll hire another company to build, the base units. They go in and they compartmentalize it all out, and then the final assembly for these weapons and these covert electronic harassment things are done somewhere, covert, that no one knows about, where they can control what it does. I mean, you're talking about Los Alamos Laboratory, you're talking about DARPA, NASA, any of these government things, the U.S. Air Force, they have their own laboratories, Dugway Proving Grounds, Fort Detrick, Maryland. They've got all these places and underground bases where they can do the final assembly and put these weapons together and then control them so that they can be turned out to their field agents. The worst thing they want is for anyone to get a hold of these things and take pictures of them and put them out all over the internet. Once years ago during the course of domestic operations here, I had a request for one of the synthetic telepathy devices that the CIA had manufactured out of E-Systems in El Paso. And I talked to some contacts, and they said I could get one for $500,000 in cash. And of course they had to bribe people and do a bunch of things, because anytime these things disappear, there's a big investigation. They want to know, you know, where it went and what happened. So we never did get our hands on the thing physically, but they do exist. And these things are tied into so many patents that have already been filed with the U.S. Patent Office. A lot of these things can be Googled up and looked if someone searches, but a lot of them, the patent process has simply just been voided. I mean, if someone does make a patent and it's a national security issue, it can just be, you know, erased and it never sees the light of day. I did some bodyguard work for an engineer who was at AIT, Airborne Instruments Technologies. It's a place that makes ECM or electronic control countermeasure stuff for Air Force stuff. And he had a new patent on something called a molecular emission scanner, and he filed it. And 2 weeks later, the NSA showed up at his door. That's a national security agency. And they said, we're confiscating your patent under national security, and they took it. And so that kind of thing happens a lot. But anyway, they have a lot of patents, like the nervous system excitation device. That's a U.S. patent. It was filed back in 1968 to use different ways, audio and radio frequency waves to signal modulate them and hit your skin and change the way your nervous system picks stuff up. I mean, there's just all kinds of stuff. It goes on and on and on.
Cody, do you remember some months ago, there was a Swedish journalist or citizen journalist called Bashir Rabbani, who I interviewed you about just a few days after he died. He was only 33, and he was just about to expose one of the big mega stars in Swedish media, Robert Aschberg. And just before he was about to release this boom, he was found dead by what seems to be a heart attack in his home. And like I said, he was very fit, only 33 years old, interesting age. And you were talking about that it was possible that this heart attack could have been induced with a directed energy weapon and so on. Since then, I've been contacted by somebody anonymously, and it seems like this individual has inside knowledge. And he says to me that Bashir Rabbani was shot with a heart attack arrow in his right leg, right under sort of where the knee, where you bend your knee on the inside. That he says the arrow is 2 millimeter times 3 millimeters, and it melts. It totally melts inside the body and only leaves a very tiny little red dot. The weapon itself is silent. Is that? Yeah. Does this sound plausible to you?
Oh yeah, that could be what happened. All right, without a forensic autopsy to find that little thing. Now, way back in 1975, during the Frank Church Committee hearings they had here in the U.S., where they were exposing a lot of the stuff the CIA had done, they had something called a bio-inoculator gun, and it had a little CO2 cartridge, and it fired a little flechette dart. It had several types of flechette darts it could fire. One of the configurations of that, I have a picture of this here with Senator David Boren from Oklahoma and Frank Church holding this thing up. And one of the configurations of the dart was a frozen flechette dart. And what they did when this solution was being frozen was put a poison in it, so water-soluble poison. And then it had enough kinetic energy with the CO2. It was silent, and it would come out. It had enough to go through a couple of layers of clothes, like a suit and a shirt. And it would enter the skin and make a small red mark, very small. And then as the ice melted, it would deliver the toxin to the target. And so only, depending upon the type of poison they used, only then would a forensic autopsy that used the GC mass spec, which is a gas chromatography mass spectrometer, which takes tissue samples and gasifies them and does a spectral analysis. If the poison they used showed up on that, then they could prove it. But some of the poisons they were using for these darts, even way back then, were what they call protein synthesized poisons. And when the poison was entered into the body after the dart, then that poison would be metabolized by the body as it was poisoned person. That way, on high level hits, like if you want to, get a prime minister or president or cabinet minister or somebody, the poison would actually be metabolized out by the body while it was killing the victim. And that stuff would not show up on the GC mass spec standard forensic autopsies. So anyway, that's one way you can induce a heart attack. Another thing they could have done is use the microwave frequency warfare, and they use a microwave device modulated around the 840 megahertz, the natural resonant frequency of the human cranium, and that causes a burst aneurysm or a cerebral hemorrhage in the brain. And the tiny capillaries get hot and they heat up and they burst, just like when you put a hot dog in a microwave and it cooks too long and it bursts. And they have a lot of ways to do that. They can target the cardo inhibitory center in the medulla oblongata. That's where our anatomic reflexes like renal kidney function and heartbeat. It sends the nerves through the thoracic spinal cord and the sympathetic trunk into the sympathetic cardiac nerves. And that nerve can be targeted with microwaves and cause your heart to start beating, 200, 300 beats a minute, and then it bursts, and it looks like a heart attack to the forensic pathologists who are doing the autopsy later on. So they have a variety of ways to use these weapons, to kill people. And your buddy probably, if you had a picture and you could find where that little red hole was, wherever he was hit, then that may be a dart. But you'd also you have to have a GC mass spec if you're going to figure out what type of poison they use, if he was poisoned. He might have been poisoned and microwaved, because they do this stuff, because there's no evidence left. See, the microwave attack leaves no evidence at all. The coroner just looks at the body and says, well, he had a heart attack, or he had a stroke and his capillaries burst in his brain. But when you introduce a physical poison through a flechette dart, like with the bioinoculator gun, then that leaves forensic evidence. Then the next step they do, the black ops guys, is they control the autopsy. They know where the person's going to be taken, and then they make sure that the coroner or person that is doing the autopsy overlooks the little red mark or doesn't do a GC mass spec, for budget reasons or whatever. Mm-hmm. And they can actually remove the actual findings and falsify the autopsy later. So whatever happened was something funny, to your friend there in Sweden. He was probably murdered. But if they didn't do the autopsy and all the stuff right then and there in the GC mass spec, you'll never know. Too much time went by.
Would there be a reason why they say that he was hit in his right leg, right underneath the knee on the inside? Would that be a specific area that would be for any reason, or is it just anywhere under the skin would do?
Yeah, it's anywhere under the skin. The key is to introduce a poison or a toxin to terminate the target. And they might have fired from if they did use a dart like that, they may have fired from a position somewhere underneath a coat or underneath a table, and they were trying to aim in the torso and they hit the leg or something. So if that's what happened, without the forensics and the high level science, you'll never know.
Okay. Here's from Jay. The question is, might Cody have something to say regarding verified Vatican participation with Black Ops type programs?
Oh, well, yeah, I wrote about this in not the Oklahoma City bombing book, but it was another book I'd written back in the 90s, and that was about the synthetic telepathy device that was produced by covert contract at E-Systems in El Paso, Texas, here in the U.S. And they tested that in a project, a covert black op called Holy See, HOLYSEE, two words. And that project, they had CIA agents dress up like Vatican priests, and they posed as Vatican priests, and they infiltrated the Vatican. And they would have one agent use this microwave device on a target, and they would transmit thoughts into their brain. It's synthetic telepathy. They would plant thoughts like some type of thought, and then the next morning when they were sleeping, and then the next morning, the undercover agents posing as priests would talk to the guy, and the guy'd say, "Oh, I had a vision from God, or I had a visitation from the angels, or whatever last night," and then he would talk to the guy and figure out what he saw. Then they would go back to the guys that sent the stuff with the synthetic telepathy device and get feedback in real time out in the field. It was a field test of this technology. And they did this over and over and over, because when they first started it, they had to tweak the parameters and change some of the electronics and alter the microwave fields and so forth to get a better transmission. You know, all the thoughts that they were sending didn't always get picked up. And so they use it as a field test to tweak the technology and make it better and make it more effective for synthetic telepathy. And that was the one I wrote about in another book about the Vatican. And the reason they did that, Ole, is because if anyone got wind of this black covert operation using all these new high-powered microwave resonant frequencies and digital microprocessor and all this covert stuff they were testing, if anyone got wind of it, they could just say, "Oh, well, those were just a bunch of priests, having visions and stuff. And we don't know anything about that. That's just a bunch of people talking conspiracy talk, because we weren't there and we weren't doing that. And all these people were having visions and dreams and stuff on their own." See, that's why they picked that forum to test that technology, because they had a built-in cover if any blowback occurred.
So here comes the next one from Far. He asked, radio waves penetrate, but microwaves seem to be a line of sight frequency. So what makes microwaves at certain points weaponizable, but not radio?
Well, radio frequencies see, that question's like wrong in the asking of it. I mean, radio frequencies can be used as weapons. They have patents for psychoacoustic projectors. They have patents, for subliminal messaging systems. They have neuropsychic and somatic diseases that are caused by some of this stuff. Radio frequencies can be used, and they are used in certain things, but microwaves are line of sight, and like this 5G, they only penetrate 1 to 2 millimeters. So it depends on what type of frequency and wavelength you're using in your particular microwave adaptation. But they do penetrate. They can make your skin really hot. Some of the crowd control things can make they use microwaves that are modulated at certain frequencies, and they make your skin hot up to like 120 degrees. And if you want to disperse a crowd, civil unrest scenario or a riot somewhere, you can turn these things on, and everyone's skin gets hot, and they just run away and get away from it. So I really don't understand that question. I don't agree with the premise of it. Radio frequencies have and can be used just like microwaves. It's just that they target different things.
Okay. I hope that was answer enough. There's another from far as well. Here is microwave oven used trying to block a certain band of the electromagnetic from being used for communication?
Okay, can you please repeat that and slow down? I'm having trouble hearing.
Yeah, and I'm having problems understanding it. Is microwave oven use trying to block a certain band of the electromagnetic band from being used for communication?
Is microwave oven use trying to block
a certain band of the electromagnetic band from being used for communication? I think what
yeah, that could be possible, but you know, microwave ovens operate at a little bit different frequency than like the standard cell phones. But they got 1G, 2G, 3G, 4G, and now they're starting up to 5G, and there's postulated there might be 6G, and they all operate at different frequency ranges. But if you cross over, you know, the microwave spectrum, you can, you know, there are bleed overs, you know, where they can interfere or whatever. But the FCC in this country, I don't know about overseas, but they have certain frequency ranges that each device is legal to operate in. And you're not supposed to, you know, use the microwave thing for ovens for like cell phones, because they're two different electronic things. I hope that answers that.
Yeah. Listen, Cody, I just want to take a little time off from the question and say, Cody, how are you doing? I mean, it's been really intense since you stepped forward. When sort of I assisted you stepping forward in December. Now it's like 6 months later. How are you doing? I mean, this must have been quite intense for you.
Oh yeah, it's real intense, and it's been the biggest financial drain of anything I've ever done in my life. I've lost more money doing all this stuff. It's just like this call right now. I'm paying 20 cents a minute long distance just for this call, you know. So we've had some book sales and some other stuff, but it's just overall, it's a big money drain. It's a big emotion drain. It's a big time drain. We've been hit and hacked and targeted electronically in every way you can think of. Our emails have been blocked, our website's hacked. It just goes on and on and on. They've deleted videos off YouTube, the whole thing. We've been censored, all kinds of stuff, attacked in every way. Just, you know, so it's been a big mess, and getting the truth out and trying to speak the truth to power can get you killed. It's just like the old adage, you know, if you tell the truth about mind control and you start talking about the stuff we're talking about now, you better be prepared to leave quickly. And then I got hit in a car wreck right in the middle of all of it. I can't prove it, but I definitely believe that at the height of this whole thing, when we started getting the book out and you know, I truly believe that I was targeted. We've been psychic attacked. We've had every form of attack just about that you can think of. And so some of my friends that I thought were my friends, they got scared, and they don't want to talk to me and told me, don't email me. I don't want any form of communication with you. They're going to kill you. They're going to murder you, and so forth and so on. And so, you know, it's just the standard deal when you speak truth to power. I'm fully expecting at some time in the future that they'll send physical assassins to me. When you talk about things like I've been talking about, you always have to watch your back. You have to watch everything. It's hard to trust anyone. I talked to someone who was down there with the Nicaraguans and Daniel Ortega and down in Nicaragua when all that stuff was going on back in the 80s. And they just flat said, you know, Cody, do you trust anyone? And I said, no, I can't. I lost that luxury. You know, so you just have to get ready for it and get your mind around it. When you speak like this, you're going to lose a lot of money. You're going to lose friends, and you may be terminated with extreme prejudice. That's what we call TWEEP, you know, terminated with extreme prejudice. You might be poisoned. You might be, there's no telling, you know, car accident, microwave attack, whatever. So you have to be ready to play the game. And if you don't have the shoes for it, don't get in it. Go back to a normal family and have a family life and work a job, you know. And we're just trying to get the truth out, because this is a precipice. The world is at a precipice. The forces of light and the forces of darkness are in a big battle right now. Mm-hmm. So if someone doesn't, you know, stand up to this truth stuff and get it out, I wonder what kind of world we'll hand down to our children and our grandchildren. One of the CIA agents over here used to be high level, you know, is Kevin Shipp. He's been doing a lot of interviews on YouTube. People can talk and see some of his stuff. But, you know, they took a paint that had mold and viruses and stuff in it, and they waited for him and his family and his wife and kids to leave, and a black ops team snuck in there, and they put this paint on their ceilings over the kitchen and their bedrooms, and it dried clear and you couldn't see it. And then they all started getting really sick as these toxins were released. And then they found out that ultraviolet light would show them up, and so they put ultraviolet light, could see all the paint marks and everything. And that's the kind of thing. They tried to poison him and his family because he's trying to speak the truth and get the truth out. So you have to be ready for all of this. I know a lot of their tricks because I used to work with them. So I'm not easy to kill. But you have to know this stuff, and once you're aware of it, then hopefully you cannot be a victim of it. You have to know what microwaves feel like when they hit you. You have to know ways that they poison you. You have to know ways they will snipe you with snipers. You have to know ways they will bomb, you know, do your car for a car bomb. You have to know all this stuff. And so anyway, it's been rough. It's been hard. And I'm still recuperating from that car accident. I was nearly killed. Both the state trooper and my doctor told me I'm very lucky to be alive right now. And so I'm just waiting for the next one to come. That's all. It's no big deal. We all die. I've already been dead twice. I died twice in CI's Project Slammer. So I've been clinically dead before, and they shocked me back twice. So I'm ready for the fight. I'm here for it. I'm here to bring the light. And I'm going to die again anyway, but they can't stop what I'm doing. They can censor us and shut our websites down and hack our emails and, you know, delete our YouTube videos and do everything, all their standard stuff, but I'm not going to stop. The only way they're going to make me stop is to kill me. So here I am. What's the next question?
The next question is, do you regret stepping forward as a whistleblower?
Do I regret it?
Mm-hmm.
Stepping forward? No, because that was my mission. That's what I came here to do. Was after I died in Project Slammer, yeah, I was in a wheelchair. It took me a long time to recover, but that's a whole big story with all of that. But no, I'm here to bring the light and the truth, and with whatever time I've got left here. And then death will be a welcome release from all this darkness on the earth. If we don't do something about it and stand up to it, okay, then we will be victims of it. And if they use subliminals on you and you don't know it, then you're their victim. You have to know how these subliminals work. You have to know how this stuff works. That's what we're trying to do, is get this out. And then if people know about it, they can defend themselves against it. And so the New World Order and the Dark Ones have a lot of tricks, but they rely on fear, and they fragment our consciousness with fear, and try to control us that way. And, you know, human beings have the right to choose their own destinies in their life. If you want to be controlled and be a slave, that's your business. I don't. And I know a lot of people who don't, and they certainly don't want their kids to be microchipped, you know, with some kind of chip under their skin in this new world order scheme that they're trying to cook on everyone. 5G could quite possibly be used in conjunctions with microchips in the future. Mm. And that's something we haven't talked about. I was waiting for a question about that, but yeah, I don't regret anything, Ole. I'm happy to, I lived this stuff. I died from it. I was with a lot of black operators and different people over the last 20 years when I was operational, and I saw what they do, and I turned against them. I went from being an asset to a liability now. So I'm expecting them to do their thing, but that's fine. I'm ready.
I have a question here. Does Cody feel that he's paying back for what he's done before?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a karma deal. Back before I died, I was real arrogant, egotistical, you know, and I had, you know, we did a lot of bad things. You know, we wore black ski mask and double plastic surgeon's gloves covered with Nomex gloves. There were triple gloves, you know, and we did a lot of really bad things. And so I did accrue karma from those things. And then after I died in the hospital, you know, I had the classic near-death experience, and I came out of my body, and I floated over the doctors working on me, and I actually lived in my spiritual form. And the truth is that we are all spiritual beings of light, and we take up these earth bodies, you know, to come down here to the earth like a vehicle, and they're vehicles. But since I saw that other world, you know, cross the veil, whatever you want to call it, and existed in my true spiritual form, I realized, you know, that all this stuff was real. And I knew that karma was real. And so I made the choice to come back down consciously, you know, to bring the light. That's why I picked that name of my book, Choosing the Light, you know, Dark Secrets of the Oklahoma City Bombing, you know, to bring the light. And so what I'm doing now, hopefully, by doing good and helping people and bringing truth in an otherwise very dark subject, it will help in some way alleviate the karma that I've already accrued.
And Cody, I hope you know that you might have lost some friends along this way, but you have certainly gained some new ones that will stand by your side. I'm one of them. Here is...
if somebody wants to be my friend, I love friends, all that. I mean, it's just, if fear is going to scare them off, they don't need to be around somebody like me. No. Okay, because you're speaking truth to power at the level that I'm doing. Okay, these are very powerful entities. The CIA, Monsanto, you know, these big microelectronics conglomerates. The New World Order, you know, they have virtually unlimited resources, and they have a lot of ways to either shut you up or attack you or marginalize you or even terminate you. And so if you're going to be afraid and you're afraid of dying, don't get around me and don't get around this subject, because you have to face death first. You have to do that if you're going to step into this world. Because if not, you're controlled with fear. And fear is their number one tool against humanity. It's the fear of death. Mm-hmm. So if you make peace with that in your own mind, whatever that is, do that first and work on your spiritual development. That's what will overcome that fear of death. We all have it. We're all raised with it. We see it on TV. We see it in school. They've really brainwashed us all to be afraid of death. But I'm here to tell all the listeners and everyone out there that death is merely a transition for the soul. We are all spiritual beings of light first. And they can kill our bodies, but they cannot harm our souls. And I know that for a fact because I died in CIA operations. And I came back. I was shocked back. My machine flatlined twice. My heart stopped. They shocked me back twice. And I know this to be the truth. This is not religious. It doesn't have anything much to do with religion. This is about spiritual mechanics and the schemes of creation. And we are spiritual beings of light. So I'm not afraid anymore. See, I've crossed that veil. I know what death, exactly what it's like. And it's nothing to be afraid of. It's a big sense of freedom. And so I'm just down here back on the earth, dealing with all this pain in my body and all this money stuff and all the things we all deal with, to bring some light and some truth. It's basically for the future generations. Somebody has to stand up to this darkness. And I got the calling along with you and a lot of other people. And so we're hoping that by doing so, it'll make other people that know things or that worked and saw some evil shadow government things or classified things, and that they will step forward and bring the light, because we have to have light and truth to change this world. And if we don't have it, then the dark ones will win, and we will descend into a new world order government. And it will be based on greed and tyranny rather than on truth and freedom and light. So that's why I'm here, and that's what I'm doing,
We certainly are grateful for what you are doing. Cody, would you mind sharing with us what you experienced when you flatlined? What was your feelings there? What did you experience?
Yeah, at the point of dying, I can explain how all that worked and how they killed me. They used what they call a psychic attack. They had very high-level psychics and adepts transmit mental energy, and they did it over a period of time. It actually went on about 6 months, and it's a whole big long story about how it works. But basically what it does is it mimics the symptoms of what they call pyloric stenosis, where your melatonin production in your pineal gland and circadian rhythm is disrupted to a point where you have such hormonal imbalance that your duodenum shuts down. And that's why they were experimenting with this form of assassination using psychics, was when your duodenum shuts down, your food putrefies in your stomach, can't get to your intestines, and you die of food poisoning. So the symptoms look to the doctors later on, that you just died of food poisoning. And that's why they were experimenting with all this. And I wrote about this in, I think, chapter 10 of that Oklahoma City book. But when I flatlined in the machine, I remember looking at the heart monitor. The guy beside me died, and the two nurses said, "This one's gone, let's go to the next one." And they got on me and started cutting my clothes off, and I was in convulsions, and I was defecating and throwing up all at the same time. And they had to hold me down. And I turned and looked. I could see the machine beating, the heart, and then it just went flat. And at that point, I started getting the darkness around my vision. And the last thing I saw was that flat line, and then everything went black. And then I felt like I was being lifted up. I was on no drugs, no alcohol of any kind at that point. And I felt like I was going through like white cotton, like clouds. And then when I got to the other side of that, it was like I was floating up by the ceiling, looking down at him. And I could see the guy beside me who had just died, and I could see his spirit. It was a silvery, kind of whitish, like orb directly over his body, had a silver cord connected to his navel, and I could see it plainly. Meanwhile, there were four nurses and two doctors that had come in there, and they brought a crash cart, and they put the paddles on my chest, and they hit it. And when they did, it was like I was going through the white cotton again, white clouds. And the next thing I knew, I was in my body and my eyes open, and this doctor was shaking me. And he was about 6 inches away from my face, yelling at me, saying, "Stay with me, wake up," that kind of thing. And then my head turned away, and I saw the machine beating again, and then it flatlined. And then I went back up through the white cloud. And when I got to the other side, that's crossing the veil. That's what I did. There's a very thin veil between the spiritual world and this world here on the earth, the physical world. And my spirit looked down at them again, and I saw them all down there working. And then they put a big needle in my stomach, and they had 2 IVs, one in each of my arms, and had strapped me down because I was in convulsions before I died. And then they hit me with the paddles again, and I came back down. And at that point, when I was up there the second time, I met my guardian angel, Aria. I used to never believe in angels and stuff until this experience happened. And, you know, she said, do you want to go back? And I thought, hell no, you know, too much pain and ugliness. But she said, if you want to go back to do the great light work, I'll go with you. And so when I came back in my body, she's been with me. And we've opened a healing center, and we do healing work now. And when we do readings on people, we ask the angels of light to assist us with stuff. And we do Edgar Casey style readings. And I've got the gift of the third eye vision now since I've crossed the veil twice. And we work with veterans who die in the VA hospitals and so forth and take them across to the other side. So this may sound highly esoteric. It's not religious. This is just what happened to me. And I can't prove it. I can't reproduce it. But I definitely know it's real. We all are spiritual beings of light. And so if you remember that from that viewpoint, your fear starts to leave. And that's something the New World Order and the Satanists and the Illuminati, they don't want us to figure that out. They don't want us to know that we are indestructible beings. Because once we lose that fear, they cannot control us. Once we lose that fear of death, the CIA cannot scare you. And that makes me and people like us dangerous to them.
Mm.
We will teach people the truth and show them the truth of our reality here on the earth, not the lies and illusions that the shadow government and the deep state have perpetrated for so long, and their wore out religious archaic structures. You know, we're just spiritual beings of light, pure and simple.
Could you describe what your angel looks like? What's her name?
Yeah, she, at that point, it was kind of like a translucent, whitish silver light. She was, you know, in the kind of shape of a ball or an ellipse, about 3 feet, you know, across, and maybe 1.5 feet or so wide. And then when I saw that spirit of the other guy that died on the table beside me, they just left his dead body laying there and went over to me in the emergency room. His spirit looked about the same. It was a kind of a translucent, glowing light. It was silver and white, maybe with a hint, a little bit of blue in it, you know, but it was a spiritual form. And that's what we are. The spiritual form is actually, I guess, a multidimensional aspect of the physical form, which is just limited to 3D. But that's what I saw. And I was on no drugs of any kind until later when they put, you know, the IVs and all that stuff in me.
So Cody, could you guide people or advise people how to reach that level of fearlessness or acceptance of what is actually going on in the world? Is there a way for you to, since you experienced it, but for the rest of us who haven't had a near-death experience?
Sure. You look at it this way. We're mind, body, and spirit, okay? And in the mind, we have an ego, and we have an emotional side to us, okay? And the ego is where fear and stuff is generated. You know, it's actually a subconscious response. Like if you know, you're in a car wreck or something, you know, your body dumps out adrenaline, and you have that fear. It can actually help you, the fight or flight response, it dumps a cortisol loop, you know, in your liver, and you start making glucose if you have to run and so forth. Our adrenal glands do that. So it's a system that's wired into our medulla oblongata, and it's subconscious, a lot of it. But you can overcome your conscious fear by doing meditation and a variety of other mental things. The key is to you know, let go of this earth life. You know, some spiritual masters have said you walk with 1 foot in the physical world and 1 foot in the other world. And if you can reach that balance and realize that this world is just temporary and that we will all die, all of our physical bodies will die, but our spirit remains. And so you can actually contact that spirit and have it ground itself, its energies down into your body and override your ego. And that is what we call enlightenment. And a lot of the masters, Maharishi, and, you know, a lot of the meditation people have actually found a way to transcend or overcome all the fear and the greed and the avarice and the lower things in our lower ego by stepping out of the mental realm and stepping into the spiritual realm. And so there are many techniques to do this in various, there's all kinds of schools and meditation classes and so forth, yoga and all kinds of stuff. But the key that we tell people is find something that works. And then look at your life from a spiritual level rather than the old mental level. They keep us trapped in the mental realm of fear and, you know, paying bills, and, you know, you're scared that, you know, you lose your job, and then when you lose your job, you lose your house and you lose your car payments and all that, and you're in this mind control world of fear. And you just step out of that and look at the truth. And the truth is that we are spiritual beings of light, and we can transcend and overcome all this darkness and all this negativity that our lower minds have created. Because our world out here, the earth, is a product of the summation of every individual's mind and their actions. And if they're focused down on the lower ego realms mentally, in fear and greed and avarice, that has created this world that we see with all the wars and all the other stuff. But if we can step out of that, like so many of the spiritual masters like Buddha and so forth, then we can create a world of light and peace and love. It's based on spiritual values rather than mental values derived from the ego. So our task becomes one of raising our consciousness up out of the lower forms of fear and into the higher spiritual forms of love and light and truth. And the New World Order can't stand that. They want people they can control. They want people who are dumbed down and who will be slaves for them, who will readily accept microwave attacks or microchips or any number of schemes like glyphosate in their food or chemtrails in their air. They want us all dumbed down and subservient to them, constantly fearful that the CIA is going to use a flechette dart or something to murder us like they did your friend in Sweden. And that's what they want us, because we're controllable from that. But a spiritual person who's not afraid of death, they have no control over them at all. And I think that's one reason they murdered, you know, Jesus and hung him on the cross, and many of the light workers and people who are trying to bring these higher truths like Martin Luther King and some of the other historical figures. They've all been attacked, murdered, boiled in oil, thrown in prison, and so forth. So that's just opinion.
So if you could relive your life, would you do it in any different way?
Well, looking back, I made some really bad mistakes when I was younger because I was an idiot. I'm still pretty much of an idiot, and I consider myself pretty ignorant. But when I was younger, I was a lot worse than I am now, and I would have changed a couple of things, you know. It takes hindsight to know, you know, should I turn right or left? You know, and you get 20 years on it, and then you look at it and you go, well, I turned left back then, but I sure turned right, you know. But no, as a general rule, I might change a few minor things, but I wouldn't change anything. I'm on this path. It's a spiritual mission, and I was lost. I was ignorant. I didn't know my spiritual mission. So I chased money, and, you know, I did all this black ops stuff for money. That's why I did it. I was greedy. I had Cadillac limousines and all kinds of fancy cars and all kinds of money. And then when I died, I realized, you know, money's something you can't take with you. All this material stuff is only temporary. It does not last. What really lasts is truth and love and our spirits.
So let's get back to the other questions.
Yes, well, we covered a lot of metaphysical and spiritual ground there in the last little bit. But so, yeah, any kind of question, I try to answer the best that I know. I don't know everything by any stretch of the imagination.
Yeah, it's, I want to say also, anyone who wants to donate to Cody, please, since his website has been shut down and destroyed, you can just make donations on lightonconspiracies.com, and then just in the message write, "This is for Cody," and so on, and I will make sure that it will get to him. Also, his book is on lightonconspiracies.com, conspiracies.com/Cody, and you will find the book Choosing the Light. I think it's such a beautiful title, and I also think this is one of the things that brought the two of us together. Your book title and the name of my website, which my sweetheart Kim Kamala came up with. But
yeah, see, Ole, right now, I just want to say to you and everybody out there, whoever's listening, I think we're all kind of drawn together right now at this point in time. You know, we're all different spirits in different countries, wandering the earth now, and we've all felt some kind of stirring inside of our hearts, something way down deep. And we know that there's something more than just chasing money and everything. And we're concerned about all this darkness and these lies. And we're concerned about our children. We're concerned about the earth, and she's our mother. And so I think we're all brought together in some strange, inexplicable way. You know, some spiritual stirring, if you will, that's brought us all together. And it's our love of the light, and it's our love of the truth. And so we all need to help each other. Nobody's above the other. We're all together as one. It's unity consciousness, whatever country you're in, whatever your station in life, we can all hold this light and hold this truth and come together in oneness. It is possible. And so that's all I got to say. I don't want to preach or anything, but I think we're all kind of drawn together, just like you said.
Yeah, I feel that as well. It's almost like our real family, and it's not always the family we grow up together, but it's also people we connect with. And this is the time when people are just being pulled together because we're so needed at this time. But
right.
I have a question here. People say you talk a lot about love and light. What is the light as far as you can say? What would you say the light is?
Yeah, I would say that light is, from a human perspective, is service to others, helping people, sharing with people, caring about them, or other creatures, cats, dogs, giraffes, whatever it is. It's service to others. And in that, in light, you know, there's truth, there's love, there's compassion. And in darkness is where I would define that as service to self, where you're greedy, or you might be hateful or angry. There's a separation consciousness with darkness, and with light, there's a unity consciousness where you realize, you know, that we're all one. Even though we have different religions and different economic statuses and different countries and different things, underneath all those superficial barriers is the simple truths of unity and oneness. You know, we're all human beings. You know, we all breathe the same air, you know, and there's a lot of similarities there. So that's how I define light, is service to others, and darkness would be service to self in a greedy way, full of avarice and division and so forth.
Listen, Cody, we're slowly coming to the end, and I really, really want to thank you for sharing this time with us, your knowledge from both the dark and the light. This is why I think you're so valuable to us, because you have actually been in the dark. You've been in the belly of the beast. You've seen it from the inside, where most of us are trying to figure out what the hell is going on with a lot of guessing from the outside. When someone like you have stepped forward, that is absolutely invaluable. And I think it's a great service to the world. I know also that you are partly Cherokee, and you've got some beautiful sayings and prayers in the native tongue. Is there anything or how would you like to end this? Anything you would like to share with us? And then maybe at the end, one of these prayers?
Yeah, we can do some of the old prayers in the old language, but but the only thing that I would like to share is that my story is just a little story. I waited 22 years. I saw darkness at a real high level. That book, Choosing the Light, talks about a lot of stuff here in America, about the Murrah building bombing and the reasons they covered it up, and the Gulf War in Iraq and so forth. And then the chapter 10 at the end of the book is about this mind control stuff like we're talking about. I'm writing a third book right now that goes into a lot more detail about all that stuff. But all I'd like to say to everyone is thank you. We are all one. There's a lot of people like you, Ole, and Dr. Stephen Greer, and a lot of people who are trying now to step forward and to get the truth out. And I think that if enough of us can do that, we can affect a change in the overall consciousness of people, and therefore change our world. I don't think our world can be changed by structures like fascism or communism or capitalism or by armies, because we've tried this for century after century after long century, with war after war after war. The answers to our problems don't lie in the mental realm alone. They don't lie in the governmental realm, where dictators and governments are constantly using guns to scare people and control them. Our world has to be changed fundamentally through our own consciousness. And if we can raise our consciousness with enough truth and enough love, then this world can change. And if a critical mass is reached, this can happen, and we can create an age of light. But if it doesn't, then we'll fall back into darkness and war, maybe World War III or whatever. So all I can say is I'm doing my little part. I'm trying very hard to work on my own spiritual development. I was lost and ignorant in my past, but we human beings can change, and we can do better. And so I would just ask, all of us, we should all just look at our shortcomings and our stuff and admit them, and then step forward into the light and raise ourselves up. We can do this. We each have that power inside of us. And that's all I'd say, is just keep on trying.
Now I have some strange sound here. Hang on to. I'm sorry about that. We had an interference here.
Okay.
Cody.
I can close this though. I've yapped my mouth for way too long, but I can close this. I can do a prayer in our native Cherokee language, and then I'll say it, in English, and it's an old prayer. Adawihi, anihi, niha, dohi, ua, luni, olohi, aliga, lulohi, unata, gali, iliga. osata, dove. And in English, that's wise protectors. They are giving. Serenity, it resounds. Mother Earth and Father Sky are giving. I am thankful. It is well.
I can only agree. It is well. It is well. All is well. We are well. And just so you know it, for anyone who wants to see the recording of this, you can always find it on the website among the other webinars. The password is more compassion in one word, small letters, more compassion. Love that one. And I would very much like to end with my prayer as well, which is from my spiritual leader, our teacher, Nelanie Chelleran. And it goes like this. May the entire universe be filled with peace and joy, love and light. May everyone, and especially the ones who hurt us, be filled with love, peace and joy, love and light. May the light of truth overcome all darkness. So there's some strange interference. So victory to that light. Anyway, Cody, it's been absolutely wonderful to have you here, and I hope that people who have joined here understand, help Cody here. I mean, it's ridiculous that a phone call should make a difference, or the price of a phone call, but this is the situation. So please, everybody, let's join together. Let's help Cody. Buy his book, because that is an incredible gold mine of inside information. It's called Choosing the Light, Dark Secrets of the Oklahoma City Bombing. Cody was actually asked to do that, but refused to do it. And instead of being an asset, like he said, he became a liability, and he was almost destroyed. He spent time in high security prisons next to Timothy McVeigh on death row. And so on. So he's been going through absolute mayhem. But until then, Cody, anything else you want to add before we finish this evening?
Well, only he who has suffered is able to save, and that's why we run the Star Lodge Healing Center here. We don't charge money. If people come, we do the best that we can and offer a variety of healing modalities. But I want to just send love out to all of you guys. And I want to thank you, Ole, for all the work you've done for 30 years and all the stuff you've done. Love is the most powerful thing in the universe, I believe. And so if we can hold that, even when you're in a prison cell, or even when they're shooting at you, or whatever, if you've got a boss at work or whatever that's bad, or you lose a child in an auto accident, whatever happens on this earth plane, always remember that love is there. It's a force in the universe. It's in the creative forces of the universe, and we can tap it, we can call it, and we can bring it down and anchor it into our lives to face all these challenges here on the earth. So hold that love and hold that light.
Amen to that. I really want to thank Will, Susie, Kim as well, who's been helping me with this webinar, as well as Frank, who sponsored us with the software. And I also want to wish Shantiritam all the best tomorrow. I know he's had an operation that's getting rid of the stitches. So many good things are happening. Once again, Cody, thank you so much. All of you who came here tonight, thank you, thank you. And please spread this. Tell people about this. They can watch the recording. Just make a donation as for 1 cent or more, you will get access to all of it. And any things you want to, if you want to help Cody, please make donations to me. Make a message, just put in the message on the website, this is for Cody, and I'll make absolute sure that it will get to him. So thank you so much, everyone, and until next time. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.